A soda fountain, Ray? Sure. You're welcome. Yes, I'll see that.
Good evening. My name is Edward Kennedy Ellington, but you can go ahead and call me the Duke. I was a famous jazz pianist, composer, bandleader, frontman, mentor, and historical African-American icon. I was involved in and influenced the evolution of jazz music from the 1920s into the 1970s with over 2,000 original compositions to my name, not including different arrangements and rearrangements of other pieces. I always try to live my life with the mentality that if I wrote it tonight, I want to hear it tomorrow night. Speaking of, what you're hearing is one of my renditions of Take the A Train. This is a piece that was one of my go-to openers and a song always ready in my repertoire. But funny enough, I didn't write it. That was done by one of my closest friends and a great talent, Billy Strayhorn. I was born April 29th, 1899 in Washington, D.C. to James Edward and Daisy Kennedy Ellington. I was exposed to music at a young age, with both my parents being pianists in their own right. But things didn't really pick up for me until I became a teenager. I remember I made a little ditty back then. I called it Soda Fountain Rag. This was my first time composing and would lead me to a career that would span over 50 years. I started my first ensemble in 1917, called Duke's Serenaders. We used to play for both white and black audiences, which back then was a pretty big deal considering the harsh reality that was segregation. After the Serenaders broke up, I became fascinated with the Harlem Renaissance, so I packed up and headed to New York. Things weren't easy at first, but eventually I joined the Elmer Snowden's band, which was called the Washingtonians, which I became the leader of after he left. We had a good run and found some success, but everything changed when we landed a deal with the Cotton Club in Harlem. The Cotton Club was whites only, but featured other amazing musicians such as Louis Armstrong, Count Basie, and Fats Waller, to name a few. Our show got so famous we even appeared in the film Check and Double Check in 1930. Through the 30s and 40s, we took the band on tour all around the world and recorded hundreds of songs in both New York and Los Angeles. We were known as the Ellington Band then, or some of the members called it affectionately, the University of Ellingtonia. During this time, we put out a bunch of hits. I don't mean a thing if it ain't got that swing, Sophisticated Lady, Solitude, and of course, Take the A Train that you're hearing now. In 1943, the band and I performed at Carnegie Hall. We were the first African-American jazz band to ever perform there. I believed it only fitting to take this opportunity and use my music to show everyone else the struggle of blacks in America. Hence, Black, Brown, and Beige, my first major suite, was born. After World War II, bebop music became all the rage. But the band kept it together somehow. But in 1956, the Newport Jazz Festival, the wind got caught in our sails once again. The band was on fire that day. I could never forget. Heck, the performance probably was what got me the cover of Time magazine. There was never a moment I wasn't composing. Even if I wasn't near a piano, I would hear it in my head and wait to put my fingers to the keys. It didn't matter what was going on around me. I could have just finished a show, and while the band was, breaking down the stage, I'd be there putting my thoughts to sound. I even had a road manager whose sole job was to get me off that bench and back on the road. I loved it. Later on in life, I realized I needed to give something back. And what I mean by that is I needed to give something back to God. During my breakfast of baked potato, steak, and hot water, I always made sure to say grace. But I wanted to give more. I composed a set of religious concerts known as the Sacred Concerts. I wasn't a professional or career-oriented goal. I didn't decide for that purpose. It was a personal thing, for the most important thing in my life. Speaking of hot water, I want to go back to that. If I didn't get that in my hotel or wherever I was every morning, I was not a happy man. But anyways, I passed away May 24th, 1974 in New York City. I always lived to be the best man I could and gain the love of and be an inspiration to those all around me. I set forth through the evolution of jazz music and used my compositions to inspire peace and brotherhood for all of us. It never mattered whether I was playing my old or new stuff. Playing for all those who listen was my passion. Now, as a treat for all of you before I go, here's a wonderful rendition of It Don't Mean a Thing, sung by Ella Fitzgerald. I just want to say thank you for the wonderful way you've inspired us and remind you that you're very beautiful, very gracious, very generous, and I do love you madly. Thank you.
Hear what I said. Hey, now. Hey. Oh, well. The whole point I'm trying to get through to you is